this is how to use the angle option in the program, and there's a lot of rubbish out there on using angles, and I believe ours basically is the only one that does it correctly. So how do we actually use it? Well, first of all, we need to find the angle option. Now, if you look at the cool bar at the top here, you can see it says angles, but that's all you can see, and the reason is because it's been hidden by the percentage option in this particular case. So if you click where it says angles, then you'll see that the percentage option slides over to the right hand side and reveals the full option. If I click on percentage, it goes back to cover it up. You can also just slide the percentage rule over by holding down the left mouse button and then dragging across, and you can move that across. Again, if you click on the angle option, then the percentage option goes all the way over to that side. Now, we then need to tell the program where we want to draw an angle from. Now, another way of actually getting the angle option to be visible is by clicking this option here, where if you move the mouse over it, so you can see like angles going on the share price, but you can't click it and it's greyed out. And the reason it's greyed out is because I haven't told the program where I want to draw the actual angles from. So if I wanted to draw angles, say from the low that was made down here, then you move the mouse to the low. Now, you don't have to have it exactly on, you can just have it anywhere on the axis. Again, if the price is above the price, then it will drop down to the top. If you move it below and then stop moving the mouse, it'll point to the bottom, and that way you get the exact price. You can then click and that puts a circle on, and then you can now see that the angle option is now being highlighted. So again, if I just click on percentage, if I was to click on the angle toolbar, you can see it just reveals the angle option as before, and because I've got a circle, then I've got a starting point to do my angles from. Now, I've hidden in this the master time factors, but if you click, you can see here it says angle points per alpha, and if we click, well, there's two boxes here. There's this one here. This one is the same as pressing return in the second box, and the little down arrow here gives you the different master time factors. And so there's alpha, beta, gamma, delta. Now if I click on beta, okay, then it then says per time period beta. And if I press return in the one box and one in the second box, then it tells me that it draws basically a 1 by 1 angle based on the master time factor of beta. If I put 2 in the box, now notice what happened when I put 2 in. Can you see that there's it says points, and in a rounded brackets it goes and says 1. That means if you keep dividing 1, so if you keep dividing 2 by if you keep dividing it by 2, eventually you'll get down to 1 before you can't divide it. If I was to put in the number 16 in that box, then it still says 1, and that's because if you keep dividing 16 by 2 until you don't get a decimal place in the number, it'll come down to 1. So another option is if you press the page down button, it will divide the number that's in this box. So if I press page down, it makes it 8, and the points there, it still says 1 because that number is based on the first odd number. If I press it again, you get 4, 2, 1. That's by pressing the page down button. If you press page up on the keyboard, then it multiplies the number by 2 each time. 64, 128, 256, 512, and that number there doesn't change. However, if I was to put in the number 24, for instance, that points then says 3. Now, if you keep dividing 24 by 2, and you can do that just by pressing page down on the keyboard, you get 12, 6, 3. Now it won't let you, when you press page down now, the computer will beep at you, and you can't make it any smaller because that's the smallest whole number without getting a decimal place. So if you divided 3, for instance, by 2, again you get 1.5. And the same applies in the other box. So if I was to put in I don't know, 28 in this box, can you see that it says 7 in the box there? That means that that number is based on the odd number of 7. If you press page down, you get 7, 14, 28, best page up, you can get the numbers going up, etc. So that's what that number is there for. So again, all this is covered in a lot of depth in the training videos, so this is just really how to use the software. But if I put in 2, press return and then put in 1, then I would get a 2x1 angle based on the master time factor beta. If I put in a 4x1, then I would get that one. Now this doesn't actually work on that master time factor, this particular item. Again, that's covered in the training videos. But again, it's just how to use it. So how do I take an angle off? Well, there's a few ways you can do it. One of them is just to put the same angle on again. So if I want to remove, say for instance, a 2x1, I just put a 2x1 on again and it removes the angle. If I press return twice, it'll put the angle back on again. Another way to do it is if you move the mouse over the top of the particular angle and left click. Now I'm just going to go forward so you'll be able to see this, but if you left click, you hopefully can see some of the options. In fact, the best way to do this, I'll come back to cut in a second, but if I move it to there, if I move over the top and left click, okay, one of the options you've got is to erase the angle, and that will take the angle off. If I put the 2x1 angle on again, then it'll put it on. If I change the master time factor to say alpha, now you can see here I've got a 1x1. If I put a 1x1 on with a different master time factor, then it's in a completely different position. Now in the this is normally labelled and would tell you that it's alpha, beta, gamma, etc. Okay, again, if you want to cut an angle, you go to it and you go to the angle, right click and then click cut line, and then you get a pair of scissors. Now the easiest way to do it is just to move it over the actual line where you want to cut it, but it's anywhere on the axis. So if I cut it and move the scissors over the price, you can see that cutting means that you can't see it into the future. If I remove if I right click, I can remove the cut and then it goes off into the future. If I use the cut option again by right clicking on it, then I can move it anywhere on the axis. It doesn't have to be on the actual line. So if I move the scissors to here, it effectively cuts it in the same position. Okay, so that's how we actually cut an angle. Now the other options you've got here are we can change the strength, and all that means is, do I want the line to be what I call strong, weak and normal. Lines that I'm interested in, I usually make a strong line, which just means a stronger blue. If I go to strength and make it a weak line, it makes it a lighter blue. Normally the default is normal, and it's a way of actually highlighting certain lines into the future and unhighlighting ones that you're not that interested in into the future, which I find very useful. Display up to a bit deep, but try not to use it. Now the great thing about software is if we change the time period, then all the angles will be in exactly the same position as they were on the different. Just give me 1 second. Okay, so you can see that I've changed it. Now that's a weekly chart. If I change it to a daily chart, that angle is in exactly the same position on the daily chart as it is on the weekly chart. If I go to a monthly chart, then the angles are in exactly the same position on the monthly chart with their relevant master time factors in the same place. Very few, if any, software out there actually does that correctly. Okay, so the master time factor is key. Now let's go back to the weekly chart. Now I'll just scale it a bit better. If I want to do a falling angle, then all I do is I go to where I want to do the angle from. So I could put a circle on there. Now notice that the circle I was using before now becomes grey, which means that's not the one I'm using. If I want to use that one, as I've shown you before, you just click on that one and that's now where we're drawing from. Another way to pick a circle, so if I'm using that to draw angles from, now I might not be able to see that circle. Now if it's off the screen one way is to scroll like I've just done. However, if I click on something I know that's drawn from that low, like that 1 by 1, it selects that 1 by 1, so you can see it now fills in the number with that angle with the correct master time factor. If I click on the 4 by 1, it fills it in with a 4 by 1, and it's changed the master time factor to a different one because that's got a different master time factor. If I click down, you can see it became the active circle. If I want to go and draw angles from there, I either put a circle on or click the one that's already there, okay, and then I can draw the angles coming down. So if I want to draw a falling angle, you put minus in the points per master time factor, and that would be a -1. If I want to do one that's falling, you put -2, so it goes down 2 points per master time factor, and I would get that angle there, etc. Okay. Now, if I wanted just to move these angles, I could just do this. I could go to the circle, hold down the left mouse button, and move it to another high. It doesn't have to be exactly on it, just somewhere on the axis, and then let go, and it will automatically, like a magnet, click to that particular price. So again, a nice useful feature for moving angles about. Now, when we're trying to work out how a particular item works, we need to find out what master time factor it works on. And one of the easiest ways to do that is actually to work out what works in the past to try and work out the future. So we can see with hindsight, with what we can see on the chart here, that there was a major high made here. So I might want to know what angle it is from that high, because it's a red circle, to that point there. Now if you move the mouse to that high, so in other words it can be anywhere above it, and then it will just let go, stop moving the mouse, and it will move to it. If you move the mouse, then it will go back. So that's like a magnet. And if we right click the mouse, we get an option called auto angles. Now I'm just going to scroll back because I won't be able to see it. So we go to here, and then we left click auto angles, and then you move over the top and you get all this stuff here. -12 by 1 gamma, 99.9%, and then in brackets 3, -2.5 delta, 99.8 and 5. And this is the secret to angles. You need to understand how to use all that, and that's not really where this is covered. This is really covered in the training videos, but this is all unique to Gann management. On how to use it. But if you want to pick a particular one, so in this particular case the -12 by 1 gamma, which is actually the closest, so the 99.9% there means it's the closest, 99.8 means it's the second closest. Because that's got 99.8 and 99.8, they're both exactly the same angle, or very, very close. So if we click on the -12 by 1 gamma, then it gives me the closest angle from there to that high there, and then that is the clue about what the master time factor is into the future. Again, if I left click on there, I can click the cut option and I can cut the line there. If I want to know what the next angle above a 12 is, then if I click on it, it fills it in with the right details. It's got 3 in the box, which tells me that 12 is based on a number of 3. If I press the page up button, it'll put 6 in. If I press page down twice, it'll put 24. Okay, so it's a quick way without having to type, and then I can put a 6 by 1 that's falling, and you can see that the next top is actually made where the market topped out. If I wanted to see that, I could also again use the auto angle option. So go to there, left click, and then you get these options here, and it tells me mathematically that there's 2 that are very, very similar, but because that one was gamma, then I'd pick the 6 by 1. You can see that's there, and I can again cut the line. So that's just a quick example of using the angle option.